So welcome, Riley.
Thank you so much, Karen. Glad to be on your show today.
Oh, I'm glad to have you. I tell you what, there are so many people that I talk to are saying, "Oh, I'm just so tired. I just can't get enough
Mhm.
sleep." And it's. I think COVID's knocked the shit out of us, but now we're starting to get back on track. But I think
Yeah,
people have sort of obtained terrible sleep patterns. And now everyone's trying to get themselves back into the norm. So I
absolutely.
absolutely love what you're doing. You must have had a good night's sleep.
Yeah, mine was pretty good last night. Yeah, it's pretty rare these days. I guess you could say, as the sleep consultant, I have to live up to my name too, right? So yeah, it was pretty good last night. And but sometimes when things are, business is busy, I won't necessarily get a bad sleep. I'll just need extra resources to help me do so. But it's nice to have those tools in your toolbox. Then you can just take them out whenever you need to.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And it's so I will get into it, but I know sleep's so important. I think it's so underrated. We just
Yeah.
forget how important it is. But I want to sort of open all that up in this conversation. But I want to start at the very start. Like you're now the sleep consultant, and you're
Yeah.
helping other people, to get really good sleeps. And we'll unpack that even more. But really good sleeps have a lot of energy and feel great about themselves. And I reckon that we all deserve to feel
Mhm.
that way. But
Yeah.
what you just didn't sort of jump out of bed at five years old and say, "Oh, I'm going to be the sleep consultant." What tell us about prior to becoming that, and what led you to becoming the sleep consultant?
Yeah, for sure. And it's always an interesting question, especially when it comes to coaches within the health industry, because usually it all stemmed from their own, journey and health journey that they gone through themselves, whether it was autoimmunity, whether some crazy event happened to them. And then that's what inspired through making themselves better. Now they're helping other people and they pursued education for that. And mine was, this along the same lines too. So for me, about going back 10 years, I went to school, university for finance. And then once I graduated, I was doing, investment banking, private equity, just like super long hours, like 12 to 14-hour work days. And it was insane. And I was in my early 20s at the time. And, it's kind of that a dog eat dog world where, there's 10 people behind you waiting to take your position. So you need to be operating on all pistons all throughout the day. But not before long, I started to experience extreme fatigue and low energy levels. And I was forced to quit my job at that age. And I really didn't know what was going on. And it was at that point where I went into lots of debt because I couldn't keep up with that. And a lot of the doctors that I were talking to, they just didn't really have any answers for me on the conventional side of things.
Mm.
So that's where I really had to take health into my own hands. And this is where I spent like hours upon hours a day. And naturally, I had a lot of interest within biology and the health and everything like that. And I started just researching, like, how does our biology work on a fundamental level? And then going from that place, going from the root cause to see, like, how was I, manifesting these symptoms and everything else. Turns out the diagnosis was Crohn's disease, autoimmunity. And that was really big for me because it was at that point that I could start building things back up again.
Mm.
Fast forward, 10 years later, over the last few years, Crohn's has been in 100% complete remission. It's kind of funny. Doctors don't know why. They'll look at the report and they'll kind of scratch their head sometimes. But, so that's kind of where I was. And you think, well, how does that relate to sleep? And what has happened was every single month I was doing like, okay, let's focus on supplements. Let's focus on exercise. But when I hit that sleep month, that's when everything started to get so much better and my progress skyrocketed. And what's good for you, I just kind of kept doing it more and more and more. Sure enough, things started improving. And then I was just like, obviously those other things help, but sleep was that big thing for me. And then when I started helping clients locally, friends of friends, parents of friends, and then I just started making a name for myself, and then expanded internationally now, where I'm helping people around the world doing virtual sessions, sending lab kits to their house and everything. So yeah, it's really a lot more amazing to change people's lives and see the transformation side of them versus looking at a spreadsheet back in the finance days. That's for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And it's, when you're talking about helping other people, I know that from my own experience. I was living a very selfish life, not really, but, like focused on me. And when I started to help other people and saw results for other people, I agree with you. Something in you just, I don't know, you're getting energy from sleep, but there is also a
Yeah,
beautiful energy that comes, isn't there, that,
yeah,
that just sparks you up when you see
it
other
does.
people benefiting from what you're doing. I love it. When
Yeah,
you got
absolutely.
Crohn's disease, were you kind of like Did you take like most people, when they get diagnosed with something, it hits them really hard emotionally and mentally, and they get really, I guess the word is almost defeated by the diagnosis, and it's like, oh God, now my life's ruined, and what am I going to do? So, did you feel that at the start, and then have to kind of, sit back and say, well, hang on a minute, it's either I go down this shitty path or I start to look for answers?
Yeah, it's a really good question. For me, honestly, it was the opposite. And the reason is because I was just suffering for so long and I didn't know why. And I felt like that diagnosis was the X factor, because I was like, okay, maybe I don't need like antidepressant pills or something like that. Like I'm not super fatigued in my head. It's actually coming from an autoimmune thing, which is like, okay, now if I address the body, the mind will follow. And sure enough, it did. Versus, some other people, it's just life's going great. They get this diagnosis and then it's like, oh, that means I won't be able to do this, that, and the other thing. I wasn't able to do any of that before. So to actually get that diagnosis was really, looking back, it was probably a blessing in disguise, how that all happened. Yeah. If it's a chicken or egg thing, hard to say, but looking back, it's just been amazing to help all these other people out, but for sure.
Yeah. And sometimes I think that happens. Sometimes I think that's in our blueprint. Now, some people are going to believe in that. Some people aren't. So there's the self-determined life. There's the blueprint life. There's this, that. And I don't know what's true. But I'm a big believer in self-determination. But I'm also got that little bit of blueprint thing that sits in my head to say, well, I kind of do believe that things just happen as they're meant to, because we're not living to our full potential, and we're not doing the thing that we're put on this earth to do, that is truly magnificent and truly altruistic and making a better world. And sometimes I think that thing happens, to give us a bloody wake-up call and say, you're not meant to be in finance, you're just
exactly
driving yourself into the ground, and here's a great opportunity for you to live the life you're meant to live. So it's a good perspective, isn't it, to think, well, it's a good perspective that you had, to say, well, this is a wake-up call. But it's an intriguing question as to why some people say, well, this is a great opportunity, and why other people say, well, this ruins my life. And I guess that's an answer a question we'll be asking forever. But so why is sleep so important? Like, we hear about it, when we're reading all the, the meditation magazines, and we're reading all the wellness stuff. And, and years ago, they didn't focus on sleep. It was kind of like, get up early and meditate and, and everything else. And now it's such a big deal. Get your bloody sleep. So why is it so important to us?
Yeah, sleep is a really, it's kind of sat on the sidelines for many years now. And it's been, especially, I work with a lot of the high performance types, like CEOs, executives. And for them, sleep is this huge liability and a burden. They're like, why would I sleep and be unconscious when I could be awake, drink coffee and get on with it? But what they fail to realize is you can actually get more done in less time when your deep focus is more on point. But kind of going back, sleep is so important because it does so many things for our body, and our body can be in a building up phase and recovery phase, rest and digest, or it can be in a breaking down and catabolic state. It's kind of one or the other. It's not kind of both at the same time. I mean, it kind of can be, but I am making a generalization here. And so when people aren't getting enough sleep, their body is going to be in this breaking down state. And what that means is, on a biological level, that's where my kind of interest and focus is. That means our hormones are usually going to be tanked. Our adrenaline, our cortisol are just going to be running on overdrive. Our adrenal glands, like all these systems in our body, are going to be running way more than they're actually used to. Now we have to sort of think about, like, our ancestors going back thousands of years. What was that kind of environment like? Like, we would run away from a saber-toothed tiger, and then we would go back to our tribe and relax. But now we're in an environment where we're constantly surrounded by technology all the time. And we're kind of in like this low level hum of stress all the time that our bodies are not adapted to at all. And what's that going to cause is like something like, if the sacrifice is happening somewhere, something else is happening in our biology. So for some people, maybe if they neglect their sleep, or sleep's not good, and there's a lot of inflammation, all that kind of stuff, down the road, it could be a disease state. But more short term, it's just our ability to focus. When our sleep is better, we can have better relationships with people, whether it's our family, our kids, like our colleagues. All these things are extremely important. And I usually call them the three amigos. Is one is your diet, two is exercise, and 3 is your sleep. And we seem to know a lot about exercise. We seem to know a lot about diet. You go to your personal trainer, you go to your nutritionist, but sleep is kind of that one that sits on the back burner, because a lot of people, I don't think, know a lot about it. And they view sleep as this thing where we just close our eyes, we open our eyes and we get on with it. But what's actually happening with your body during that time we're asleep is it's so important for so many recovery functions of our body and our mind. For example, inside of our mind, when we need enough REM sleep to consolidate all the memories of what we learned before, to clear out all the plaque and this something known as oxidative stress that's passing through our brain. And when we don't get enough REM sleep and our sleep's compromised, sometimes we really increase our rate of Alzheimer's, because Alzheimer's is really that plaque buildup in the brain over time. And same with our body. It's just inflammation, cortisol, stress. If we're not fully recovered for the next day, and instead we compensate that by putting a Band-Aid on the issue with coffee, if we're tired, eventually we're going to start putting our body deeper and deeper into the rabbit hole as we burn the candle from both ends. So that's where sleep is really this tool. And we're sleeping anyway. I mean, we're not driving to the gym or 3 cups of this, 3 teaspoons of that, where it's complicated. Sleep's something we're doing anyway. So if we can make a few tweaks, the ROI, it's called Pareto's principle. You can get 80% of the results with 20% of the work. Sleep is really that one if we focus on. I mean, it's just tremendous results. And I mean, I'm really happy now that there's more awareness about that and more people are focusing on it. But like you said, it's kind of on this like added on thing sometimes, where it's like meditation, stress, and sleep. But if, sleep just goes way more than that. And, in the science, like every single week, it seems like there's new literature coming out. I mean, it's fascinating and they still really don't understand it.
I think it's amazing. We've got such a bad habit, like most of us, and we do it. And I have to force myself, but then I get really tired, and I'm like, I'm going to bed. And I don't care if it's 9 o'clock. As soon as I'm tired, I'm going to bed. I don't care what anyone's doing. Yeah. But it's that getting tired, and I know so many people tell me this. I get tired. I want to go to bed, but then I start. Because I'm in that dreamy state, I start flicking through Facebook, or whatever. And then before I know it, another 2 hours is gone, and my body's like, it's just crushed. and then it's midnight, and then in the morning, they don't feel refreshed. And how much truth do you think? I know from my experience, and I don't know whether it's just my biological just my makeup or whether this is true. But I've heard that whatever sleep you get before 12 is actually the most productive sleep. And I find that true for myself. Is that a myth, or is that something that is actually proven and true?
Yeah, there is a lot of truth to that, actually. But one thing that's really important is we have something known as our chronotype. And our chronotype is how we are genetically wired when we should go to bed at nighttime or go to bed in the morning. Now, about 70% of the population are known as night owls. They like to stay up late. That's their most productivity. 30% are called morning larks. These are people whose most efficient time is sort of first thing in the morning. And to kind of you probably have a good sense of which you are. But if somebody doesn't know, I usually ask them this is, if you were to write like a 2,000-word essay, what time of the day would you choose to write it? And for somebody who's a morning lark, like I'm a morning lark, for example, it sounds like you are too. Yeah. I would always do it when I first get up in the morning, or like maybe sometime later in the morning. And then somebody who's a night owl, they'd rather do it later at night, because in the morning it's just so difficult for them to get up and wake up. But it is true. So if somebody is sort of that night owl type, the earlier that they go to bed before midnight, usually they can get a lot more of these deep wave sleep patterns. And a big reason for that is because we wake up at 2, 3, 4 a.m. in the middle of the night. But if we go to sleep earlier, then usually we can kind of sneak in some more sleep cycles before we do wake up at that time. But in an ideal world, you just won't wake up at all. So that's kind of one thing. But yes, there is a lot of science behind that as well.
I'm surprised you're saying those stats. For me, I naturally thought, and I haven't done research, but I just assumed that most people were morning larks, and I'm surprised to hear that 70% are night owls. And I just recently met a guy who says, I don't go to bed while it's dark. He said, I'm just not going. I go to bed at 6 in the morning and wake up at 2 in the afternoon. And I said, don't you feel tired all the time? And he said, yeah. I said, why'd you go to bed? Go to bed. Like, I always think, and maybe this is just like old fashioned or whatever, but I always think follow the birds. I always think that, if the birds are going to sleep, we should start thinking about going to sleep. They're waking up. we should start waking up. And that's how I try to live. You know, if I sort of, I'm awake 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, you know, and I love to go to bed at 9 o'clock. You know, I really love to do that. But it's yeah, that's how I think we should be. But then again, I'm terrible at imposing my beliefs on other people, so I'm going to stop doing that.
Well, you are right about, you know, Mother Nature has a lot of wisdom within itself. And I mean, it's like where do we come from? Sometimes we just think we were born into this like crazy technological environment around us, but we have to remember we're just, you know, kind of these primitive creatures with, you know, these monkey brains at the end of the day. And so we kind of have to, we're kind of at the laurels of, we can't really force our way through all this stuff. We're just kind of, it's just how our bodies have adapted over thousands of years, and we can either, sync our environment to help us favor that or not do so. And if we don't, then it's probably going to make us feel tired and that kind of thing. One other quick side point I'll say about that is a lot of people are actually night owls, but they have morning jobs, and this causes them to wake up. And, it's not because you're lazy. A lot of people think it's because they're lazy. They can't wake up in the morning. It could very well be you're just a nighttime person, and that's why you need coffee in the morning and all these different things. And then that could also be why you want to stay up late. Like you're just not tired around 10 p.m., 12 a.m.
Wow, I am. That's for sure. Yeah, and so you talk a lot about the biology code. This is a thing that you've created, the biology code, and I love. It's not making sense now. Listening to everything you've been saying about how does our body work and how do we bring the sleep factor into it? But explain the biology code a little bit more, or have you already done that? But I think there's more to it.
Yeah, absolutely. The biology code goes very, very deep, and it's really all about like what I usually like to refer to as like unlocking our biology code, because a lot of us are limited. Like our biology is not firing at its full potential, and you can just think of it like a car. Like if you have a car and you're not doing like oil tune-ups and all these other things, what's going to happen to that car over time? It's just not going to run as efficiently. It's not going to burn gas as efficiently. It's going to, it's just going to cause you a myriad of problems down the road, versus one that is performing well. You're taking care of it. Everything's going to be running efficiently. You won't have a lot of issues. And the same thing can be applied with our body too. So kind of keeping it in basic terms, like we have our brain, we have 7 different systems inside of our body, like our cardiovascular system, hormones, muscular, skeletal, and it just goes on and on. And like the organs we have our thyroid gland, we have our heart, we have our adrenal glands, we have our stomach, we have our kidneys and our pancreas and our gallbladder, and they're all working together. And in conventional medicine, doctors are amazing. Like they really save people's lives. But sometimes when you go to your family doctor, they'll send you to a specialist. But when you go to a specialist, the specialist will only see everything through the lens of their specialty. They'll never look at the lens of all these other things. And doctors will never talk to other specialists, like maybe it's something with your adrenal glands and your hormones related to your pancreas or your stomach. Like the hormone doctor won't talk to the gastroenterologist for your gut necessarily of what's going on. It's kind of just that thing in silos. So what I love to do is really see all these systems in the body working together, because when one system starts to sort of fall apart, the rest do. And it eventually can really fall apart like a Jenga puzzle. On the extreme end, that's when somebody's in a disease state. But just on kind of a functional level, it's just us just not feeling like our best self. And a big thing is people who are, they pass the age of 30, 40, 50, they probably remember in their 20s when they were just full of energy and full of life. But, they think like, well, it's just age. It was just a natural byproduct and cycle of that. And I say it's actually the complete opposite. That's kind of the grand illusion of our time. With that, we can actually, and I've helped many clients, make them feel better in their 40s than they ever have felt in their 20s. Just more energy, their joints aren't sore anymore. And a big part of that is through sleep. But, we focus on diet, lifestyle, exercise, certain supplements, reducing blood sugar in the body, really stabilizing that. Maybe somebody has parasites inside of their stomach, even though they're eating a very nutritious diet. It's taking all those nutrients. Maybe their hormones are tanked and their adrenals just can't push out the hormones anymore, and that's why they need coffee all the time. And it's like whipping a tired horse. I could just go on and on about it, but everything is just related at the end of the day. So when I say your biology code, it's just what are the total kind of like, how is it all working together? And if you just think of a car, and how in sync is it, and the more in sync it is, and the better that they can operate on their own individually and communicate with each other, that's when you're really going to start feeling a lot better than you ever have before.
Yeah, 100% agree with you. I think we do, when you're talking about the doctors, it is so much like that, isn't it? We're just going to focus on this and we're just going to focus on that. And I'll give you a pill for that, regardless of how it's going to affect, all the other stuff. And so this pill to fix that, this one buggers up this one, and it's
exactly.
I've had a bitch about that for a long, long time. It's just, and then there's not many doctors either that subscribe to or support a holistic assessment or a holistic, view of our body. And it's, I found a doctor who does. I talked to her about naturopaths and I talked to her about other stuff. And she's like, good, that's great. And not many doctors do. Most doctors are kind of like, just take the pill, just take the pill. So I think if you can, and it's and I don't like going to the doctor. I think, and most of us don't, because if we go to a doctor, it's kind of like we're admitting there's something wrong, unless we're a hypochondriac, But I love what you're doing, because it avoids that whole thing, and it avoids the whole medical system, and which I think you can go down a real rabbit hole once you start getting into the medical system. But
for sure.
And they call it the wellness, like the health system. It's not a freaking health system; it's a sick system. And we're going to look the other way and start looking at what's out there that naturally, naturally develops it. I love it. You also talk about sleep nirvana. Oh, that sounds bloody fantastic. What do you describe as sleep nirvana?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I like how it sounds as well. It just it brings all the good attributes of sleep. So what it is whenever I'm working with a client, I always want an end goal with them, because they're just like, I want to sleep better. But I really want to define it as something that's actually tangible that they can actually reach. And, we'll track the progress over a period of time. But what it is the ability to fall asleep within 15 minutes, like lights out. That's not like 1 hour tossing and turning in bed on your phone. That's literally, you put your head on your pillow and it's lights out pretty fast. And then you can sleep from, depending on your chronotype, what you need and everything, 7 to 9 hours on average, completely uninterrupted throughout the entire night. And then the ability to wake up completely energized, full of energy, not hitting the snooze button, just ready to go without the need to take any stimulants or any coffee. And you just have a clean, sustainable source of energy all day long. And that's really what the goal is here, for your body to just naturally produce this abundance of energy where you're in the state of thriving all day long, not coping, not, it's just, positive thinking, just naturally your body's output is just effortlessly coming through, and you're not really forcing yourself through the day. You really just have an ability to just effortlessly go through the day, and things just work in your favor.
Wow, that certainly sounds like nirvana.
Yeah.
Utopia. That sounds bloody fantastic. I know that I fall asleep within 2 minutes, as soon as I hit the pillow. I'm out. Except the bloody dog and cat keep getting in and out of the bed all night. It's like, for God's sake, we keep saying
ruining Nirvana.
Yeah, we'll say, shut the door and lock them out, and then we feel sorry for them. It's like, nah, maybe tomorrow. But I think it's I feel blessed because I can go back to sleep within 2 minutes, even if I get woken
Fantastic.
up. I don't know many people that can do that, and it's I think that's a blessing. However, I don't do 7 to 9 hours. I ring 6 hours and I'm up, but I'm alert. 6 hours I'm bam, and I try to go longer, but I don't. And my brain goes. And we're up and we're off and running.
Oh, good. Some people, genetically 6 hours could be it too. For some people, between usually 6 and 9 hours, I would say. But 6 is great too. It's more so the quality of the hours that you sleep versus the quantity of the hours.
Yeah. But there are a lot of people who I don't want to harp on COVID, but that kind of threw people out of whack. And then people have changed jobs, and people are doing the hybrid thing and in and out of the office, and and that sort of stuff. And so there's a lot of I guess our minds, not our brains, but our minds are sort of realigning things and thinking, well, how do I do this and how do I do that? And it's probably keeping a lot of people awake at night. I've no doubt that people are tossing and turning, thinking, I don't know how to do that. How am I going to transfer this? I don't know. Is there a trick to trying to go to sleep quick, or like counting sheep? Does that still work, or is that, is that a bit of a challenge?
Counting sheep, because the thing is, what causes us to have a very difficult time, whether it's going to sleep or we wake up and trying to fall back asleep, is we're thinking about the thinking, and we think about the thinking of the thinking of the thinking, what we have to do the next day, why we can't sleep, what's going on, and that's really what causes, our body to increase cortisol and just all these different things that keeps us awake at night. Is very stimulatory for the body.
Yeah.
So instead, what you want to do is it can really be anything, but you want to do, something to preoccupy your mind, to stop the thinking. And then eventually your body is just going to feel well rested and fall asleep. So a couple different things you can do. They've done studies on this too. It's if you wake up and you do something for, let's say 30 minutes, usually if you don't, stay in bed with your eyes closed, it's because in that case, it's very easy to just think about your thoughts and you're stationary too. If you get up and you do something, so maybe it's, this isn't necessarily practical, but they did in the study where you go, like you're sweeping, or maybe you do a vacuum, or, you're kind of just moving around and it's not too stimulatory. You'll naturally feel tired. You won't be thinking about those thoughts because you're more in your body and less in your mind.
Yeah.
And then when you go to sleep, it'll be lights out, usually within a couple minutes after that. So anything you do, another really good option is an audiobook, because you're not looking at a screen. So you can do like Audible or maybe some music, a guided meditation, focusing on your breath. Again, taking your attention out of your mind into something external, that helps a ton.
For me, it would just be reading a book with my lamp, because that puts me to sleep. I can't even see the words with a little lamp, and it's like, why am I bothering? That's good. And you've also got a podcast, and so what's the name of that?
My podcast is called the Sleep for Side Hustlers podcast. And it's really, side hustle has become this new term of, people have 9 to 5 and everybody wants to start a side hustle now. What other ways can I use to make, to make a lot of money or more money on the side, and eventually make that side hustle into a full-time hustle where it's their own business. Yep. But a lot of those people, they're just working like 14-hour work days, get home at 5, 6 o'clock, quickly eat dinner, doing all that. And over time, it gets very exhausting for them, and they sacrifice their sleep. So I found this demographic to be people that really need help, and it's expanded now to CEOs, but really sleep is something that affects everybody. So it's really for anybody can listen to, and, I have a lot of cool guests on there as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And you got a book, The Sleep Solution, as well. So
I got the Sleep Solution.
Yeah.
People can go to my website. They can download it. I originally had it as paid, but now it's completely free. People can go on there and download it whenever they would like. But then I have 2 other programs too. One is just a video program. It's called the Sleep Solution System. It's about 20 hours long with a bunch of handouts and everything. It takes you within 8 weeks to get to this place of sleep nirvana. Wow. And then even a higher tier program, it's called the Executive Sleep Coaching Experience. And this is the one that involves the lab test. So this is where I send lab test kits directly to people's houses, looking at all their genetics, all their hormones. They take a sample, they send it back to the lab, and it's worldwide too. So then I analyze all the results electronically. And this is kind of like the true sniper approach, where we look at your biology, where's the holes, where's the weak links in your biology, and then we address it with a lot of custom tailored protocols. And this is how you really get, good fast. And because you're not shooting in the dark, you're seeing objectively how you're feeling, and then subjectively how they feel as well. So it's a really great approach, as well as sleep tracking with something known as the Oura Ring. It's a great little tool, as well, to use to track your sleep.
Oh, really? I've never heard of it. Wow.
Yeah. There's a lot out there. You have the Apple Watch, you have the Fitbit. Let's see if I can show you there. So it's the Oura Ring. It kind of became popular. A lot of like NBA players and stuff were using it. Something kind of cool with this ring is when COVID was around, it would detect when you were about to get COVID. So then you could start like, oh, I better start, doing certain things so I don't get too sick. And sure enough, it helped a lot of people. But it's great. I love it.
Wow. Oh, well, I've never heard of them, but that's fantastic. Yeah. I thought it was a mood ring. I saw it before, but I think you'd always be in a pretty good mood, wouldn't you?
So far, as long as sleep's on point, I'd say it's pretty good.
I love it. I love it. So, what if people download the book? How's that going to help them? What's in it for them?
Yeah, it's really a lot of low hanging fruit things that they can just start trying right away for a lot of great results. Some of those things could be avoiding caffeine after 2 p.m. because caffeine can run through our body for about 14 hours, 7 hour
Mm,
half-life. Finding out what your sleep animal sign is, avoiding a lot of heavy food 4 to 5 hours prior to bedtime. And just using light, so light from the sun or light from inside at certain times of the day in order to sort of hack our biology and to allow us to feel sleepy when it's time to feel sleepy and feel awake when it's time to feel awake in the day,
mm.
in the afternoon. And it goes, excuse me, into some of the science as well with it. But yeah, there's a lot of good nuggets in there for people to use as well.
Oh, I love it. And I reckon the podcast would be great too, because there are so many people now, doing side hustles and and really hoping genuinely, busting their guts, to come through the other side, and so I can quit that 9 to 5 job, because everybody's not everybody. That's a generalization. I'm good at that. So many people are sick of the 9 to 5. And it's quite outdated for a lot of people. And we're not that, we don't perform that well as well as we always thought we did. Now that we've got this other model, and so but a lot of people are saying, you know what? I don't have to do this anymore. I can create this thing that I've always wanted to do. Life's too short. But I know myself, and I ended up losing my thyroid, so I don't have a thyroid. So you can imagine that takes me down to about 80% of my operation, because it isn't there anymore. And it's but I can see clearly how that happened, and that all of the side hustle stuff I was doing, like I have still got a not-for-profit, I was writing a book, I was building up other businesses on the side, and you don't go to bed till 1 o'clock in the morning. You for me, I like to be in bed at 9, so I'm eating into that 4 hours of
Awesome.
good sleep, and it's exactly what you're saying. And I haven't done the research to say definitely you've screwed up your thyroid because you were staying up late. Like I haven't done that definitive research, but everything about what you're saying makes complete sense as to that being the cause. And I think we've got a real issue as human beings, is that we bury stuff. We're like, I'm doing okay. I'm still upright. I'll deal with that if it happens. You say, well, you could get cancer, and you could get diabetes, and you could have a stroke, and you could blah, blah, blah. And I'm not meaning to go down a horrible, negative, morbid kind of avenue here. But the truth is that when our body's not operating, and I'm not talking about a peak performance, but when our immune system starts to crash because we're not taking care of it, we're ignoring it. As you said, all those things start to break down like a Jenga puzzle. One bit falls and the next bit falls, and
exactly.
And we've got a really bad habit as humans of waiting until we're broken, and then we like, oh, I should fix that now. And when you try to fix it, and I've been guilty. I'm not going to play God, because I've screwed up many times on that level. And it's like if only we could. Well, we don't think far enough ahead. We just don't do that often. And if I think far enough ahead, if that happens to me, I'm going to spend 10 times as much energy, which I won't have, trying to build myself back and repair myself.
Exactly.
If you even can, because sometimes the damage is not even. Whereas if we look at now and say that is possible, and so I should start taking care of myself. Why do you reckon? And I know you're not a professor on this, but it's a curious conversation for me. Is why do you reckon that we as human beings constantly don't address things when we know it could happen? We just have this, but it's not happening yet, and it's possible, but I'm just going to bury my head and ignore it. Why do you reckon we do it? You don't have to have the answer. I'm just curious.
It's a really interesting question. It's something I've wondered myself too. It's just like sometimes you'll see people and they've just sometimes, like, whether it's a high performer or somebody who's not a high performer, it's just, I think society in general, we're very stimulus oriented, and we either want results now, and if we don't get the results right away, then like, why would we bother with it? Whether it's you know eating some junk food or getting that sugar hit, whatever that dopamine hit is, we usually want results right now. And if it doesn't benefit us right now, then we kind of just put it off, sweep it under the rug until it really comes back on the tail end. But usually I ask people the question, where do you want to sacrifice it? People think, well, it's so expensive to, focus on my health right now. It's like healthier food and all these things. But I tell them, like, what about down the road, healthcare costs, in 20, 30 years from now? And sometimes people don't think about that. But I think society in general is really just, if we don't feel that pain immediately, it's just like, it's out of sight, out of mind. If it's not here right now, then why would I even bother with it? But this is the thing, is sometimes people need a taste of what that good and new feeling feels like, and that becomes a new positive addiction. I mean, it's amazing with some of the clients I work with, they came from a place like, how do you feel 1 out of 10? And they'll say, like, I've been like a 1 or 2 out of, for the last 5-10 years, and coffee's been maybe able to get me up to a 5, but since then I just dropped right back down to 1 or 2, and they've been living like a zombie for years upon years. And then we give them a taste of what it feels like, and then they'll start to feel like, one day they felt like an 8. They're like, oh my God, that was insane. I've never felt like that since my 20s, or since I was a teenager. And then we're like, well, don't you worry, we'll do that again. So now they start doing more of that. Now it's very easy for them to adopt that new approach, because they just feel so much better. And then fast forward 6 months, 1 year later, they're just a completely different person. And they would never, looking back at their old self, they would never go back to that again. So it's kind of, we're just used to this, our normal, and sometimes we think it's right because it's just something that we're used to. But what I say is, just try something else, have faith in that system, and then once you're able to attain that, then usually then it's automation mode. People are like, that's when I usually don't have to work with them as much, because they're like, wow, I know what to do now, it feels great, and it just becomes a self-fulfilling system and prophecy.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's an imagination that to get to that point, it's just going to be too freaking hard. That's too hard, and I'll deal with it when I get there. But that's undone me a couple of times, and I think that and I'm still not perfect. Whenever I'm really tired, tired, and because I haven't been able to go to bed, I'm out somewhere. I'm doing something. Yeah, bloody oath, I'll grab some lollies, or you call them sweets, candy, on the way home, and I'll eat a packet, on the way home, because it's that instant. And then I think, I feel a bit sick, and then I think I'll just have another one. And it's like, why are you having another one when you feel sick?
Exactly.
But I think when we get past that tired point, when we get around, we are looking exactly what you say. We are looking for all these quick fixes. Because when you're tired too, you're not thinking you're foggy, you're like this, and you're not going, well, your complex brain isn't working, because we just don't have enough energy to feed the bloody thing. So we're not going, okay, so I'm feeling a bit lousy. So I'll tell you what, I might research and find someone who's can help me with. We're not going to go there. I think if even at the start of what you're saying is just get some sleep, so that we can think clearly enough to then be in a state where our neocortex is actually connected and working properly. So then we can say, what would I want to be in 5 years' time, or how would I want to be? And then we can start making the plans. But we're never going to make those plans while we're sleep deprived and while we're feeling really bloody lousy. So even before talking to you or working with you or anything, if people just try to focus on getting a bloody good night's sleep, anyway, just get more sleep, like go to freaking bed, just get some sleep. You're going to be in a better place anyway, and then you can start planning, well, who do I want to talk to about you feeling better, and what can I do? So
absolutely. That's everything you said is so bang on. I mean, sometimes people just need to reach a 5 out of 10 or a 6 out of 10. And then that's when the magic and the spark happens, and, the rest takes care of itself. Sometimes that's why I tell people, like, hey, I'll give you this homework to do for a little bit before, if you want to work one-on-one with me, let's get you maybe to a 6 out of 10 from a 1 out of 10. or a 2 out of 10. And then working with me, we can do more optimization, more personalized tweaks, and kind of get you from that 6 to 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10. But it really just depends on what your goal is too, right? Like where you are at life. I mean,
Yeah.
ideally, if you had all the time in the world, you had no other obligations, no one to take care of, it would be a lot easier, compared to someone that did have all that. So it just depends. And the other thing I wanted to say is it's all relative too. And you want to celebrate even the small wins and the small victories. Because if you eat the one lolly and you're like, oh my God, I ate it, you give yourself such a hard time. Like you're just going to build all these negative frames around that. You're going to feel bad. And then you're going to want to do, more of that thing to kind of cover up and put a Band-Aid on that versus, you just celebrate the wins. Like maybe I had one now. And I, for sure, even as a sleep consultant, I'm not perfect. Like I definitely will as well. But I say, can you make a 1% improvement every single day and going in the right direction? Can you make more positive decisions than negative ones that day? Then you're in a really great place and you're always moving forward, and you really see the change like in 3 months time, 6 months time, 1 year's time. It's just, you just have to have faith in that path.
Yeah. And I so agree with you about saying, don't beat yourself up, and I don't, I used to, but, I used to be like, oh, you're trying to lose weight and you just bloody eating shit, you stop eating it. But now I'm like, get off you just have it. It's more important to get home safe than to worry about whether you've had a bloody lolly. Dude, just get home safe and you've had a great day. And that's a fantastic way to be, because I know so many people that eat a cake, and as soon as they go to eat it, I hear them. They say, oh, I've only got to look at a cake and I put on, but they still eat it, and then they're like, oh, I shouldn't have eaten that. Now I feel like shit. Now I'm fat. And I just think sometimes you've got to eat the cake. Sometimes eat it and just say, well, you know what? I've had a really good week. Everything I've been going well. So I love that you're saying that. Love it. And I actually think that if we, sorry, I'll cut you off, but I was just going to say, I actually think negative self-talk is actually one of the biggest immune busters of all time. It makes you so sick. And
it does.
Yeah. And we're all guilty. We're all guilty.
Yeah, we're all guilty of it. I mean, like I said, we really have these primitive monkey brains at the end of the day. So we need to do things to make it as easy for us as possible. And like, you really do have to be your own best friend, as kind of woo-woo or however you want to say that. For some people, they'll just like, come on, like, just get up and do it. And they'll talk harshly to themselves, and that's good for motivation for some people, but you kind of reach a point where you have to be your own best friend and have positive self-talk. And the science really backs it up too. And a really great book around that is called Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. It's kind of a classic one. Really cool story, but I highly suggest people go check that out. But how like our brains are always creating new synaptic pathways and neurons and kind of like these highways throughout our brain. And the more negative thoughts we have, we're going to increase not only those circuits, but we're going to reinforce those circuits. So then let's say there's just a neutral situation. It doesn't seem good. It doesn't seem bad for the average person. You're automatically going to go to that negative thought, versus if you're reinforcing more of these positive highways, even in a negative situation, you will see that in a positive way. And then what does that do? Well, that, just promotes all these pro hormones to make you feel even better, to make you maybe not do that negative thing, eating the bad thing. And, it just goes up and up from there. But at the end of the day, we all start somewhere. We're all from different walks of life, different environments. So we really just have to appreciate where we're at and just keep moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think one thing that I've started doing is a lot in the last couple of years is just, if I want to lie on the couch, if I'm tired, and I've had a big day, I'll say, no, I don't care. I'm lying on the couch. I deserve it.
Well, there you go, right? Yeah.
It's made a big difference. No, I deserve to have a nap. I deserve to lie here and read a book for an hour.
Exactly.
And it's made a massive difference to me. But
awesome.
Yeah.
Glad to hear.
Well, I've absolutely loved this. I love what you're doing. And I think that, I really wanted to have you on, because I think there are so many people that listen to this podcast that lack sleep, that are really, really trying to get something off the ground, off the bench, of course, and really hustling themselves into the ground. And I think that we got way better chance of getting it happening if we get the sleep. So you've just shared some beautiful nuggets in there, and I'm just so grateful for the work you're doing, because more people need it. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. I love spreading the word of sleep as much as I can, because we all need it at the end of the day, right? I mean, we can't survive really without it. So thank you so much for having me on the show. I had a lot of fun.
No, my absolute pleasure. All right. And hopefully people go follow you. And hopefully there's someone listening that wants to work with you, because I think it would be an absolute cracker for them, to really, I don't know if I'm Australian, you're American. Sometimes we have language, it's not the same, but a cracker means be a really good thing for them. So.
Yeah, well, I do have a lot of Australian clients, and I'm slowly starting to learn some of the lingo. So, yeah, well, it's set me up for what you have to say. So it's all making sense over here, which is
Yeah.
good. But I also wanted to say, for anybody, I do free 15-minute sleep assessments.
Yes.
So people will just come to me, and obviously I do have programs, but that's not the point of the call. I really just want to help as many people as possible, and guarantee you'll leave with some nugget of information to bring you forward along your journey. So I'm more than happy to help.
Oh, that's fantastic. Beautiful. And where can people find you? I nearly forgot that.
No problem. Yeah. So they can just go to www.thesleepconsultant.com. Everything is really on there. They can check out my podcast. They can get in touch with me directly. They can book the sleep assessment there. My email though is Riley, RILEY at thesleepconsultant.com as well.
Fantastic. And people can connect with you on LinkedIn, and they can download the book from the website. So
that's right. Yeah, it's all there.
Yep, fantastic. All right. Well, thank you so very much for joining us. I've absolutely loved this conversation, and I think you're doing incredible things. So thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
No worries. See ya.